Very good afternoon to all of you. Today I am teaching you about shoulder dystocia. Okay, what is shoulder dystocia? It is a vaginal when it is in the vaginal delivery when it is cephalic presentation. Shoulder dystocia occur in vaginal cephalic delivery that requires additional obstetric maneuvers to deliver the fetus after the head has delivered and genital traction has failed. It occurs when either the anterior or less commonly the posterior fetus shoulder impact on the maternal symphysis or sacra promontory respectively. So shoulder dystocia occur in a cephalic presentation in a normal vaginal delivery. After the delivery of a head, when it is a difficulty in delivery of anterior and posterior shoulder and the other part of the body, that is called shoulder dystocia. Okay. So what happens in a normal vaginal delivery? As you see, first it is in the normal delivery is divided into steps. Okay, first the head will engage, then it descend with contraction. With contraction, flexion occur, and with more contraction, when the presenting part touches the pelvic floor, there is internal rotation occur, and after the delivery of head occur with extension, and after that there is restitution and external rotation and delivery of the rest body. Okay, the delivery of rest of the body, that is delivery of the shoulder, trunk, buttocks and the legs. Okay, so what happened in normal delivery? As you see, after the delivery of head by extension, restitution, delivery of the head occur, okay, in epidirection, then the baby head will come back to the position. It may be in the occipito anterior, occipito posterior, or any position, the left or oblique, any position it will go back. If suppose it is in the left occipito posterior, left occipito anterior, then with restitution it comes in the left side, and external rotation occur also in the left side. Okay. So after the delivery of the head and external, in what happened in shoulder dystocia, when there is delivery of the head by extension, as is this process the same: engagement, descent, flexion, internal rotation, extension. So after the delivery of the extension, restitution and external rotation of the head occur. After that, what happened? We have to deliver the rest of the body. So what you have, as you have learned about the normal labor process, it is said that after the restitution and external rotation, the anterior shoulder hinges behind the pubic symphysis, and by giving flexion of the body, we deliver the anterior shoulder come down, and then delivery of the posterior shoulder, and likewise the rest of the body deliver. So in shoulder dystocia, after the external rotation, the anterior shoulder hinges behind the pubic symphysis, and the delivery is difficult. Here the baby it's stuck, the anterior shoulder and the posterior shoulder stuck in the pelvis, and it's very difficult to deliver here. Sometimes the head goes revert back also. So okay, so what happened in shoulder dystocia? After the delivery of the head, okay, the anterior shoulder gets stuck behind the pubic symphysis, and it's not approachable to deliver it. What happened after the delivery of head? With the flexion, anterior shoulder comes down, okay, then by extension, posterior shoulder comes down, and the delivery of anterior shoulder, and then posterior shoulder happens. But what happened in shoulder dystocia? This anterior shoulder get hinges behind the pubic symphysis, and it's not approachable, and the baby is not coming down. Okay. So how will you predict that shoulder dystocia is happening in your normal delivery? So first the prediction is very difficult and is very inaccurate. It's very difficult. Sometimes very difficult to assess it. Okay. So what are the certain factors when you think that there is then there are the chances that the baby have shoulder dystocia in this delivery? Macrosomic baby. So the baby weight is the more high risk factor. If the baby weight is more, there is difficulty in the delivery. Diabetes independent of fetal size. If the patient has a history of diabetes, then the risk is more in the patients with the shoulder dystocia. Previous shoulder dystocia, if patient have a previous history of shoulder dystocia. Prolonged labor. See, prolonged labor is always, there is a cause for prolonged labor. It's not normal, as you know that. Always prolonged labor is because of the malpresentation, malpositions, or big size baby. So there is a problem in prolonged labor. Always is a problem of power, passage, or passenger. And shoulder dystocia with prolonged labor is more common with passage. Sorry, the passenger, that is the baby. So if the baby size is more, there is chances of prolonged labor. Okay, the baby will not descend down. Okay, so in that case you have to think that if the baby size is more, the labor is prolonging, and we need an assisted delivery. In this case, the chances of shoulder dystocia is more. Induction of labor for macrosomic baby has been shown to reduce shoulder dystocia in women who have diabetes. So it is actually, shoulder dystocia is not very common, but when patient have a history of diabetes and the baby size is more, what practitioners used to do, they used to deliver the baby, they do induction of labor. Okay, वैसे भी in diabetic patient we not prolong the pregnancy more than 38-39 weeks. We deliver the baby early. So what we usually do, if there is chances of macrosomia and shoulder dystocia, we induce the patient early, before 40 weeks. So the size will not increase and the chances of normal delivery without any complication is more. It is worth bearing in mind that sensitivity of ultrasound for macrosomia is low with at least 10% margin of error. Ultrasound is, actually we are predicting that there is chances of shoulder dystocia is there or not. So by ultrasound is difficult to assess the exact fetal weight. Okay, there is always difference of 400 to 600 gram. Okay, so you are not able to assess it. So fetal macrosomia, there is always, I have told you, fetal macrosomia is the fetal size is very important for shoulder dystocia. What happen in diabetic patient? Macrosomia is there, okay, but there is more increased pad of fat in the back of the fetus, in the back, okay, in the shoulder, in the back, in the scapula area. The pad of fat is more in the babies with history of diabetes in the mother. Okay, it's not happen in every. It's normally it is a big size baby, but the patient is not diabetic. The chances of pad of fat is not more in other patients, but in case of diabetes, there is chances is more. So patient with history of diabetes with macrosomia, the risk of shoulder dystocia is more as compared to the big size baby without any history of diabetes. Okay, so there is a relationship between fetal size and shoulder dystocia. Many authors have shown that the incidence of shoulder dystocia significantly increases with birth weight. Okay, however, 48% of shoulder dystocia occur in infant with a birth weight of less than 4 kg. So actually shoulder dystocia is comparative, not necessarily that the big size baby is only there. Okay, pelvis, maybe the pelvis is not good, the baby size is more as compared to the shoulder, the baby size is more as compared to the adequacy of the pelvis. So in that case also shoulder dystocia can happen. The positive predictive value of a birth weight greater than 4 kg for predicting shoulder dystocia was only 3.3%. Not necessary. I have only seen around 3 to 4 cases of shoulder dystocia as per now of my 10 year of experience. Okay, so it's not very common. Even in a big size baby you can deliver the baby normally. Furthermore, both clinical and ultrasound estimation of fetal weight are unreliable, especially in larger babies. Okay, I told you earlier, ultrasound is not very, but clinically you can suspect. Infant weight rate of shoulder dystocia, if the weight is less than 4 kg, then the risk is only 0.3%. If 4 to 4.5 kg, 4.7%. If more than 4.5 kg, the risk is about 9 to 9.4%. Okay, the risk increases with increased weight. Maternal factors, maternal obesity, there is a relative risk of 2.3 of shoulder dystocia in women with a pre-pregnancy weight of more than 82 kg. So obesity increases risk. Why? Because of the fat. Okay. Maternal age multiparity. Maternal age is often quoted as a risk factor, but once other variables are excluded, it does not appear to be an independent factor. Maternal age is independent, is not very significant, but maternal age is important with multiparity. So multiparity increases the, as you know, the primary as compared to the primary multiparity, the risk of larger baby is more, the obesity is more, diabetes is more with age. So all these factors added up and all together causes the risk factor. Diabetes, there is a very strong correlation with macrosomia, but also the manager of fetal growth differ in these baby with great shoulder, chest and abdominal growth. I told you shoulder, chest and abdominal growth is more in this, and there's a pad of fat in the behind the back also. Previous shoulder dystocia, the recurrence risk in a subsequent pregnancy is reported to be between 1 to 25%. Most studies quoted 20-fold increase in this. As actually what happened with a patient who have a previous history of shoulder dystocia, as in the second pregnancy, in the next pregnancy also the baby weight will be increased. So the chances of cesarean section increases in the next pregnancy. So it's very difficult that to study it properly, because the patient is gone for cesarean section for cephalopelvic disproportion. So the patient has not gone for the normal delivery even. So estimated fetal weight, the rate of shoulder dystocia in mother who do not have diabetes is only 1.1%. But if the rate of shoulder dystocia in mother with diabetes, the risk increases. If even in the less than 4 kg, the risk is 3.7%. But without diabetes, 1.1%. Similarly, when the baby weight is 4 to 4.5 kg, the risk is 10% only with a history of diabetes in mother, and 30% in mother with diabetes. And more than 4.5 kg, the risk is 22.6% without diabetes, and 50% with diabetic mother. Okay, the risk increases with risk is more in case of diabetic patient. Intrapartum factor, post-dated, although as I told you, post-dated means the baby weight is increasing, the patient has not gone in labor spontaneously, then sometime patient came in at 42 week, 41 week, 42, 43. I have seen in 44 weeks also. So with increasing the pregnancy, with increasing the gestational age, the risk of macrosomia increases. So in some patients who have a history of shoulder dystocia, or actually it is indicated that after 40 weeks we have to terminate the pregnancy. But sometimes patient will not come by herself, and we have told them to come, but they have not used to come. Then in that case, the baby weight will increase and the risk of shoulder dystocia increases. Instrumental delivery, shoulder dystocia occur more frequently in assisted vaginal delivery as compared to spontaneous vaginal delivery. Not necessary that the baby weight is more in patient with assisted vaginal delivery. Only that case shoulder dystocia happen. Any patient in which especially in patients with fetal distress, or especially in the fetal distress when we have to deliver fast, we used to use ventouse or forceps delivery. Now only low forceps delivery is permitted and high forceps delivery is abandoned. But if you use high forceps for delivery, in that case the chances of shoulder dystocia is more. Okay. How you prevent shoulder dystocia? In women without diabetes, where the fetus is thought to be macrosomic, there is no evidence that early induction will prevent shoulder dystocia, as I told you, but sometimes it is used. We usually induce patients who are in oral anti-diabetic treatment. We wait till 40 weeks, but patients who are in injectable or in insulin, these patients are usually induced at 38 weeks, because the risk is increased not only for shoulder dystocia but sudden IOD. So in these patients we usually deliver by induction. Elective cesarean section is not recommended, as actually okay, sorry. See, actually, the chances of shoulder dystocia is less. So, and in one study, it is seen that by doing 2,345 C section would need to be performed to avoid one permanent injury from shoulder dystocia. See, the chances of shoulder dystocia is less, as it is how much it is 4.7% is 4.5 kg, as I told you, without diabetic, and it is for 50% in diabetic. So in diabetic patient you have to think for to as the 4.5 kg usually we do cesarean section, we not give any trial. Okay, so in more than 4 kg normally we take the patient for cesarean section, we not give vaginal delivery trial. Only if the pelvis is very good and we are think that okay we can give a trial, only in that patient we will give, otherwise usually cesarean section is indicated now. So estimated fetal weight is unreliable and the majority of macrosomic infants do not experience shoulder dystocia. So an additional 2,345 cesarean section would need to be performed to avoid one permanent injury from shoulder dystocia. So any patient not only for shoulder dystocia, we usually not do cesarean section. Only there is a risk of cephalopelvic disproportion. There is clear cut cephalopelvic disproportion. Only in that case we used to take for cesarean section. In women with diabetes and a suspected macrosomic fetus, induction of labor at term can reduce the incidence of shoulder dystocia. Elective cesarean section should be considered if the estimated fetal weight is greater than 4.5 kg. But in Indian condition, the pelvis we usually do pelvic assessment and the weight is more than 4 kg, we usually take the patient for cesarean section. In women who have had a previous shoulder dystocia, when discussing mode of delivery with a woman that has sustained a previous shoulder dystocia, factors such as the severity of any previous neonatal or maternal injury, the size of the fetus, the maternal choice should be taken into consideration. Okay. What are the complications? Shoulder dystocia is with increased risk of vaginal trauma and anal sphincter damage as well as PPH. What are the fetal and neonatal morbidity? Brachial plexus injuries complicate 4 to 6% of all the shoulder dystocia deliveries. Majority resolve without permanent injuries. Fewer than 10% result in permanent dysfunction. Erb's palliasis, that is C5, C6 injury. Cervical 5 and 6 injury is the most common, presented with internal rotation and adduction of the shoulder and extension and pronation of the elbow. Okay. Klumpke's palsy C8T1 occurs less frequently. Okay. Other fetal injuries include skeletal fractures, especially of the humerus and clavicle, pneumothorax, and hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. How you will manage shoulder dystocia? The majority of cases of shoulder dystocia cannot be anticipated or predicted. So all birth attendants should be familiar with the techniques required to facilitate delivery. Any risk factor, however, should be highlighted in the case notes. Certain warning signs may occur during delivery. First, head bobbing. That is when the head constantly retracts back between contractions during the active second stage. Difficult delivery of the face and chin. Turtle sign, that is the delivered head becomes tightly pulled back against the perineum and there is difficulty in delivering the chin. Failure of the restitution of the head, shoulders fail to descend. Okay, all staff in the unit should work to the same protocol and there should be regular drill and practice session. Okay, the event should be practiced and managed along similar lines to a cardiac arrest. Time should not be wasted with either fundal pressure or excessive traction. These maneuvers don't help and can cause morbidity. Maneuvers that twist the neck or excessively pull down on the head at an acute angle should be avoided as these may result in brachial plexus injuries. Hypoxic ischemic damage risk is low if delivery is achieved within 5 minutes from the time of delivery of the head. So we have when you diagnose that it is a shoulder dystocia, you have only 5 minutes to deliver the baby. Okay, you understand it? You have only 5 minutes. So in initial 2 to 3 minutes you have to do the maneuvers to try to deliver the baby. If you are not able to push, you have to immediately shift the patient for cesarean section. So what is the systemic approach? You have to learn the mnemonic helper. which is taught in the advanced life support in obstetric courses. Help, call for plenty. Help, H for help. Help is shout loudly like shoulder dystocia. You need help. You help for assistance. Ask, call the nurse, your colleagues, and call the anesthetist to prepare the OT for immediate cesarean section if needed. Okay. Evaluate the episiotomy. E for evaluate the episiotomy. See if it's able to liberally extend the episio to deliver the baby. Then if it not happen, then what you will do? You will do Mac-Roberts maneuver. What is Mac-Roberts maneuver? This is the Mac-Roberts maneuver. Actually, suprapubic pressure is not the Mac-Roberts maneuver. Only extension of flexion at the hip, है ना, and flexing the knee towards the abdomen. It's the Mac-Roberts. Legs flexed onto the abdomen causes rotation of the pelvis, alignment of the sacrum, and opening of the birth canal. So what happen when you flex your knees towards your abdomen? What happen? This AP diameter increases. This, है ना? Okay, this AP diameter increases. So when AP diameter increases, the shoulder, which is hinges behind the pubic symphysis, it, as the AP diameter it can come down. Okay, when you're giving flexion, so it can come down, and the baby will deliver. So this is Mac-Roberts maneuver. So second is the pressure. You give suprapubic pressure. Okay, so this is called Rubin's maneuver. When you give suprapubic pressure, that is called Rubin's maneuver. This is Rubin's one technique. Here what you will do, first I will read this. In this, what happened? Have an assistant at the mother side place their hand on the suprapubic region of the mother abdomen. Position similar to the CPR with assistant above the woman. May need a step stool to attain correct position. What you will do? Mother should be lying on back with leg hyperflexed and knees to the chest. That is Mac-Roberts position. Then what you will do? With the heel of the hand or fist, and arm straight, apply the moderate pressure. In which direction? Downward and lateral direction. That is very important. Downward and forward नहीं चाहिए हमें. Downward and lateral चाहिए. Why? When you give a downward and lateral, that displaces the anterior shoulder from the behind the pubic symphysis. It displaces the anterior shoulder from the pubic symphysis. Okay, when you give a suprapubic pressure in downward and lateral to fetal anterior shoulder, it hinges above, it push from the behind the pubic symphysis, and so it dislodges it. As it dislodges, the baby will deliver. What happen if continuous pressure does not dislodge the shoulder? Use a rocking motion, that is compression or relaxation. Okay, then what happened? Okay, you have done this, na? Then you have given Mac-Roberts maneuver, then suprapubic pressure, that is the Rubin's one maneuver. Then if suprapubic pressure will not able to deliver the baby, then what you will do? Then it comes the Rubin's two technique, that is in which what you will do, you do place the finger or hand on the most easily accessible fetal shoulder. You do vaginally, you put your finger inside your right hand and see, are you approachable to the anterior shoulder or the posterior shoulder? Okay, any shoulder if you are easy to approach. It's very difficult to assess, even it's very difficult to touch the anterior shoulder in shoulder dystocia. So do the vaginal examination, see you are able to touch the anterior shoulder or the posterior shoulder, which is very easy to you. Okay, then what you will do, you have to place the finger or hand on the most easily accessible fetal shoulder, may require episiotomy also. Push the shoulder towards the anterior surface of the fetal chest. That is Rubin's two technique. Learn this because it's very confusing. Okay, push the shoulder towards the anterior surface of the fetal chest. You have to go back. Where you have to go? You have to touch the anterior shoulder, go behind that is near the scapula, behind the back. Okay, behind the back. You put your two finger. It's not easily to put your whole hand. It's as as much as possible, if you are able to push your whole hand or two finger behind the shoulder in the back and try to push it towards the chest. Okay, push it towards the chest. What you will do, you will dislodge the anterior shoulder or posterior shoulder from the AP, that is bisacromial diameter. So when you are pushing the shoulder, okay, anterior posterior shoulder towards the chest, you dislodge the shoulder and the bisacromial diameter decreases. Okay, so push the shoulder towards the anterior surface of the fetal chest may result in abduction of the fetal shoulder and decrease the shoulder dimension, okay, freeing the impacted anterior shoulder. So when the bisacromial diameter decreases, the baby will dislodge and the baby will deliver. Okay, what happened? Sometimes this maneuver is also not working. You are able, it's the baby is so stuck, you are not able to even changing the position. You are not able to do anything. It's so stuck. Then what you will do? Okay, this is the Rubin's technique. That what I have told you, that as you see, the two fingers are behind the back in the shoulders and is pushing towards the chest. That is the Rubin's 2 technique. Okay. So okay, okay, this is wood screw maneuver. Wood screw maneuver is when the Rubin's 2 maneuver is not able to with the Rubin's 2 maneuver you are not able to deliver the baby. Then what you will do, your right hand is behind the back, okay, in the one of the shoulder. The second left hand, okay, while maintaining the pressure on the as above in the Rubin's 2 maneuver, a second hand locate the anterior aspect of the posterior shoulder. Okay, apply pressure to rotate the posterior shoulder. Attempt delivery once the shoulder move into the oblique diameter. So in the wood screw maneuver, like a screw, when you screw it, anything, when you screw a nail, okay, what you rotate by 180 degrees. Same here, what you will do with your both hand, you push the shoulders, okay, and rotate by 180 degree, or sometime in only by pushing it by 90 degree, baby deliver. And if not able, then push it completely 180 degree. So what happen when you deliver? When posterior shoulder comes anteriorly and anterior shoulder comes posteriorly, okay, then the diameter decreases and you are able to deliver the hand. Okay, so if by wood screw maneuver you are not able to deliver the baby, then there is a posterior shoulder, delivery by the posterior shoulder. As you know, in the pelvis, the sacral curve has some space, so you are able to put your hand behind and hold the hand, okay, and deliver it, the posterior shoulder first, posterior hand first, and then the delivery of the rest of the body. It's a difficult procedure. Okay, posterior shoulder delivery is difficult. Sometimes there is injury to the humerus also in this procedure. So roll the patient, and the last one is when you are not able to do this, roll the patient to her hands and knee position. In that position, the AP diameter sometimes increases and you can deliver the baby. Okay, so the maneuver describes are designed to do one or more of the following: increase the functional size of the bony pelvis, narrow the bisacromial diameter of the fetus is the main concern we have to do, change the position of the bisacromial diameter within the bony pelvis. Healthcare professional dealing with the shoulder dystocia should decide which order to perform internal maneuver according to their training and clinical experience. Not necessary that you have to do every maneuver to see if she is able to deliver or not. You have to assess in that 2 to 3 minutes that you are able to deliver by any of the maneuver in which you are very much skilled, and it's able that she is able to deliver by first do the McRoberts maneuver. If not able to, then the Rubin's 1 technique. Not able, then Rubin's 2 technique. If not, a wood screw technique. Okay, and last is the posterior shoulder. Why the posterior shoulder? Because sometimes if you are not very much skilled, then the chances of injury is more in posterior shoulder procedure. There is no evidence that internal rotation or removal of the posterior arm is a superior intervention. Internal maneuver has been associated with fewer humeral fractures, as I have told you, because you are in the posterior shoulder, you have to first see vaginally. You have to put your finger inside, hold the hand, rotate it on the chest, and deliver the posterior shoulder, then you have to deliver the baby. In some time in this case you are not able to properly adduct the hand, in that case there is injury to the humerus. And last is the Zavanelli maneuver. In what happens in Zavanelli maneuver, when you are not able to do any maneuver, baby will not able to deliver, what you will, you push back the head inside. So how you will deliver, how you will push it, consists of cephalic replacement. What you will do is before doing the cesarean delivery, you have to do Zavanel maneuver. In that, relax the uterus with turbulin, rotate head back to the occipital anterior by reverse restitution, flex the neck, upward pressure, and push the head inside how much you can do, and shift the patient for the cesarean section. So as I have told you, the increase the function size of the bony pelvis by doing Macrobert's maneuver, or by changing the position of the patient by head and knee position, that is dog position actually, by increasing the AP diameter. Then decrease the bisacromial diameter of the fetus utilizing suprapubic pressure or wood screw maneuver, okay, or change the relationship of the bisacromial diameter within the bony pelvis by rotating the fetus one of the shoulder, that is Rubin's 2 technique, okay. This is the shoulder dystocia, okay. Okay, now the transverse lie. Any question you want to ask about shoulder dystocia? Okay. So now what transverse lie? What is transverse lie? Transverse lie in which the long axis of the fetus is perpendicular to long axis of the mother. Shoulder of baby comes in the lower segment of the uterus, okay, in 0.5%. So it has 4 position shoulder presentation. It is according to the in shoulder presentation or in the transverse lie, the presenting part is the acromion, okay. So position is according to the presenting part, that is the acromion. So acromion may be anterior or posterior. So acromio anterior position is more common as the concavity of the front of the fetus fixed in convexity of the maternal spine. So placenta is posterior in 60% of cases, okay, but the acromion is anterior or posterior, it is right or left like this. So the back, as you see, the dorso anterior and the dorso posterior acromion, okay, the acromion is anterior, dorso anterior, dorso anterior. This is dorso, this is, in this case dorso is posterior, and this is also dorso and posterior. So it is right or left, left or right, okay. How will you diagnose? On abdominal examination, the head is usually felt in one iliac fossa or in the flank, the breech in other iliac fossa but at a higher level, okay, fundal level just above the umbilicus. Fetal heart sound heard below the umbilicus. On vaginal examination, early in labor the cervix is elevated, lower uterine segment is imperfectly filled late in labor, imperfectly filled, and late in labor the cervix is sufficiently dilated. Then we can feel the scapula, acromion, clavicle, axilla and rib. How you confirm position? If the arm is prolapsed and supinated, as I have told you on doing vaginal examination, if the cervix is dilated, fully dilated, and membrane is absent, then you feel the scapula, acromion, clavicle, axilla and ribs like this. So in this position you will see the acromion, this is the ribs, this is the clavicle, okay, and this is scapula, okay, you can feel it. So how you will confirm in this position? If the arm is prolapsed and supinated, the dorsum points to the back and the thumb point to the head. As you see in this case, the thumb point towards the head and the supination, the dorsum point towards the back, and the thumb towards the head, okay. What is neglected shoulder? When sometime when the patient came late in labor and you are not already patient cervix is dilated, membrane is ruptured, okay, in these case the shoulder may in that case the hand may got prolapse and neglected shoulder can happen, in that is impacted. So it is in case in prolonged labor, membrane rupture, like it is already drained, arm may be prolapsed, fetus dead or dying. As what happened when the hand comes down, when the hand prolapse happen, because of the outside exposure, respiration sometimes happen inside the cause, okay. So in that case the baby will baby have respiration and aspiration, in that case fetus may dead, okay. Lower impacted or like is already drained out, in that case cord compression can happen, also because of that fetal distress can happen and fetal may die inside. Lower segment overstretched, sign and symptom of obstructed labor will be there. How will you manage during pregnancy in case of transverse lie? In early labor, when patient come in early labor, you can do external cephalic version, but when there is a good contraction, it's not possible to do external cephalic version, okay. It can be normally in very early labor or after 37 weeks we do external cephalic versions. Even an early labor before rupture of membrane you can do, but the failure rate is high. Laxity of the abdomen and uterine walls makes the procedure easier than in breech. The fetus will be rotated only by 90 degree, but if fail, do external podilic version. You can try external cephalic version first. If not possible, then do external podilic version. But if patient come in a proper labor with a good uterine contraction, you will not able to do any external cephalic version or podilic version. Then you have to take the patient for cesarean section, okay. Now in a modern practice, if patient come in with persistent transverse lie in labor, we have to do cesarean section in live or a dead fetus, okay. During labor, tried with intact membrane. If succeed rupture membrane, application of abdominal binder is done. External cephalic version should be done only by a skilled person. Because there is very much high risk for placental separation, rupture of uterus in these patients. So you have to do only if it's with a very skilled, if you are very much skilled, only that in that. If you are not able to do that, take the patient for cesarean section, okay. Okay, so the transverse lie is completed. Any question you have to ask?